to have you. I'm Claire Goodale, the host of the E'Claire Makery podcast. So go ahead, introduce yourself, and kind of share your maker story and how you got started crocheting.
Hi Claire, I'm glad to be here. It's so fun to be on your podcast. Hi, I'm Vincent Green. I am the maker behind Not Bad, and I guess technically Yarn Punk as well.
Yes.
So two different brand names I'm going under, two different aliases. My maker story is, let's see here. I have been crocheting for 4 years come this August. So to me, it feels like a long time. I feel like I've been doing it forever, but some people might not think it's that long.
Yeah, I've been doing it for like 17 years, so.
Really?
It's not that long. Yeah.
Whoa!
I learned when I was like 7 or 8, so I've been doing it for a while.
Whoa, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's like that. Whenever I say how long I've been doing it, everyone's like, "Oh, I've been doing it for this long." I'm like, "Oh, I still have some catching up to do." So definitely not an expert like some of you guys, but one day.
I think you're an expert, so.
I have a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
But my maker story. So I grew up not ever having any type of I don't know, no one really influenced me when it came to art or anything. I actually had never taken an art class in my entire life. I've been going pretty. Let's see here. Growing up, I was always really into video games and stuff. I feel like I was creative when it came to romance and stuff. Like my girlfriend, I always like to do nice things for my girlfriend, like kind of go out of the box, like be creative in that way. So that was my only way of being creative. And then let's see here. College, I did the normal college experience for 2 years, and then I kind of just hit this crossroad that I feel like many early 20-year-olds hit. Okay, why am I here? I realized I was only in college just because
Yeah.
I don't know, that was just the thing to do, right?
We're literally children that are just now adults that then they're like, now figure out your life, and you're like, I don't know. I just stop being in grade school.
I think 18 is way too early to be making that giant financial decision.
Oh,
just what the, oh my gosh. So I bailed out there really quickly just because I was like, ooh, this is I'm spending a lot of money just kind of finding myself, and I could just do that for free. so I was working at Domino's for a year and going to school, and then I just hit this crossroads where I kind of just needed some time to breathe. I was having a lot of mental health difficulties. And so I dropped out of school, and then I also quit my job with a little bit of money under my belt. My parents let me chill in their basement for a bit, and for some reason, the most logical thing to do was just learn how to crochet. I remember my last day of work at Domino's. I was on my phone just scrolling. That just shows how much I really cared at that point.
Yeah.
I saw this cute little patch, and I was like, oh, that would be really cute to sew onto my shirt or a coat. And I was like, oh, that wouldn't be so hard. Just do that. Then I thought to myself, okay, well, if I could do that, how hard would it be to learn how to crochet? Because I've always wanted to do it. I tried to have my girlfriend in high school teach me how to do it. And I've had other people try to teach me. But then I thought, okay, if I just invested X amount of time, I'm bound to be decent at it. If I just put the time into it. So I came home with it, or I went to Joann's and I just picked up some yarn and a hook, and I just sat on it was like a 14-hour streak. It was 7 hours of learning how to do it. It took me 7 hours to learn how to chain, which is So I'm definitely no prodigy. I am the last thing of a prodigy. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up and I went at it again. I think I made one little granny square, or one little swatch.
Oh, yeah.
Even a granny square is just single crochet back and forth. And then I decided just to make a Squirtle from Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
I jumped right into the amigurumi, and then since then I've just been my friend had just gotten a camera right at the same time, and I'd make things, we'd go out, take pictures of it in public, or in a tree or whatever, and Instagram was awesome back in the day. It was easier to be found, and people just kind of took to it, I guess, and it just started going from there. And then I took my first selfie, and then it just kept blowing up, and I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. So Yeah, and that's kind of how it all started. That's my maker story. It went from like 0 to 100 really quickly.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah,
that. I jumped. I think when I started crocheting when I was young, I jumped right into amigurumi too. Like,
oh,
'cause
nice.
I tried to have my mom help me crochet, and because my grandma sat all of us grandkids down and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna teach all of you how to crochet." So she gave us all hooks and yarn, and we all learned how. And then I tried to ask my mom to help me learn more, and she was like, "No, I've been wanting to learn knitting. Let's learn knitting instead." So I learned how to knit, and then I was like, I want to do crochet. So then she got me a book, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll learn how to do this. And I didn't understand the whole concept of how you need to mark the first stitch in your round. So I would lose count of
Very
how many
easily, yeah.
very easily, and my piece was really weird. My
I
dog looked like it was had a toilet paper roll for a head. It was pretty.
at the end of like a row or a round, it has like the number of stitches at the end.
Uh-huh,
Like
uh-huh.
it'll say like 32 or whatever. I thought that meant how many times you do the whole thing. So I would just like repeat it like 32 times like, wow, this takes forever.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it took me
Can
like
you imagine?
yeah, I just like didn't even yeah, I didn't really like learn how to read it. I just kind of like I just kind of was like had a big head. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna assume that's what you do. So, but it turned out okay. My first
Yeah.
thing was actually pretty ugly, but whatever. It's cute. I still have it. I'll have it forever. So
Yeah, exactly. I still have mine because it's so fun.
good. Yeah,
Looking back and being
yeah.
like, I'm glad I'm not there anymore.
I've met some people who have like gotten rid of their first piece and they regret it, and I'm just like, oh, that would be like my number one piece of advice to someone is like keep it, cause like
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good reminder to show you where you are now. Being like, look where I started. Look how much I've grown. Yay, me.
Yeah, a lot of time and practice. It really does show that practice makes you
Mhm.
better. Not perfect, but better for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So one of like the things like you mentioned earlier is yarn punk, and that I think is such a cool movement that you started. Like people have caught on to that so fast. So what like
Yeah.
inspired you to like even start something like that?
Well, again, I was like, yeah, you're right. People did catch on to it pretty quick. I was like, whoa, what the? Are you serious? This is like this is working. So I think it was just a culmination of things. It was just like, as I am like a younger guy crocheting, I get a lot of like not flack, but a lot of
Mm,
questions and like what? Like what do you?
yeah. Why
That's
are you
what you did?
spending your life this way? No.
Yeah, and
Oh.
it's been really odd to people, and I feel like I'm not the only one who like. It seems like there's like this like resurgence of like younger crafters or just well not I mean not so much that it has to be younger, but just like that stereotype of the grandma is just like I don't even think about it anymore.
I don't
Like
either.
that's not how I view it anymore. Like especially if you're like pretty in the know. Like there's a lot of young hip people like us that are just like yay
Yeah.
crafting.
Yeah.
um,
We're like, yarn is cool. It's better than everything else.
yeah, yarn is cool, but it all started. It wasn't so much like I had the idea of I'm gonna take
Mhm.
it here. I just remember I was working on a piece and uh, I was just like walking from my room because I was showing my roommate. I was walking back to my room from the hallway, and I just like stopped in my tracks. I was like, this seems kind of yarn punk. I'm kind of like into like the whole cyberpunk thing. And I like cyberpunk. I think that's kind of like where a lot of it came from. I was like, oh, it'd be really
Mhm.
cool to like because everyone's like, oh, you need to find your niche and everything. And since I was trying to get into clothing, I was like,
Oh.
I don't really have. I'm not really trying to do like normal
Yeah.
clothing. I want it to be like kind of Neo Tokyo's type stuff. This is kind of yarn punk. And then
Uh-huh.
I ever since I said that, I was like, okay, that's kind of rad. And then Lion brand had me do a photo shoot over in like their yarn aisle, and I had just thrown the word yarn punk at the very end of this like really lengthy caption, and people just took to it like no other. Like it's like one of my most commented and liked pictures, and I was like, okay, there is
I re-
definitely
I
something here.
remember that post. I remember like I was like, "Whoa, I saw you post it." And then all of a sudden there were so many people commenting and everyone was sharing the photo like, "Oh my
Uh-huh.
goodness, yarn punk. I love this idea."
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool. And then I went to OML which is our maker life, and I was just throwing up the hand sign, just like yarn punk, and people were just like, "You're the yarn punk." I'm like, I guess so. But now that I've had time to like decide what I want it to be and everything, it's just like there hasn't really been anything where if you're a crafter, you just kind of say you craft or you yarn. You're a crocheter, but that doesn't really like define anything. It's not really a genre of sorts.
Yeah.
It kind of just says what you do with your time. And I was like, I feel like yarn is so like integrated in my life. There's no way that it's just like it's Vincent and yarn over here. It's definitely one thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, I was like, you know what? Because not bad is so just like my own personal work, but I was like, there's something bigger out there. I could feel it. So that's kind of like
yeah,
my bigger than life project.
yeah. I feel like it's a really good idea because I like a lot of the stuff that's out there is more of like the boho, like pretty stuff, but there wasn't anything for like people who like you like more Pokemon or that more like cyber style or that more like edgy look. Like there wasn't really anyone out there fully embracing that and like appealing to that audience. And so I felt like it was a really good like I think that's why people took to it so much is they're like finally there's something that I can actually define myself as. And the whole idea of like I love like how you started a lot of people using yarn to sew on to like thrifted clothes because
Yeah.
I'm a huge thrifter. I love thrift store shopping, so that's like the perfect thing for me. I love it.
Well, it's just like because a lot of like I feel like a lot of people that crochet or whatever. Well, for me, like I did dolls, so like no one really knew I crocheted because the novelty is at home. But
Yeah.
it's just like fun to integrate it into your everyday life. Like it doesn't need to be
Yeah.
its own, and it's been a fun like my idea of what yarn punk was is completely different than what it is now. Because I was like, okay, because yarn punk a lot there was some flack with some people like they're like, oh well, it's what you're doing isn't punk. I'm like, okay, what? It's not punk. It's yarn punk. It's its own genre. Like
Yeah.
like I for me yarn like the punk part is definitely more so not the style but the more of the mindset behind it. Because you know how punk is totally like, against the grain,
Yeah, yeah.
not normal, and so it's become definitely, and I think I've done an okay job at like verbalizing that yarn punk is like you kind of come out with your own variation. Like for me, my version of it is kawaii metal. That's like my version of yarn punk, but other people are super into rainbows, or if they have some type of
Yeah.
like 80s feel to their version of yarn punk. Really, it's just a celebration of like people, and the definition of it is anyone that expresses himself through yarn.
I
Um,
love it.
so I mean, like it's vague enough that anyone can fit the mold, but it's like specific enough that you can like classify yourself as, oh yeah, I'm a yarn punk, and you know
Yeah.
it's cool, and it's fun to see some of these parents like dressing their kids up in yarn and like using the term yarn punk because like now it's not just, oh, my mom is making me wear this, but like you can embrace this like style, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, and it's just it hasn't really ever been seen before.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of like because there was that like stereotype of that it was just like, oh, your grandma just makes it, and but now there's all these new crafters coming in and younger crafters, and they're like the idea of people making their own clothes that was like, oh, that's so old fashioned, but now it's like, no, it's actually really cool. Like I made this and I get to wear it wherever I go. It's awesome.
Yeah, and especially in today's day and age of social media, everyone is technically their own brand name.
That's
Like,
true.
I mean, like that's how you are. I mean, whether you're selling a product or your time, like you are a brand, and like if your brand has a bad name to it, that's a reason you could get fired from your job or not get a
Hmm.
job. And it's just like,
Hmm.
yeah, making your own stuff is. I don't know, just an extension of who you are now, and I mean, people are digging it. The more you stand out, the more you almost fit in, and I feel like that's what Yarn Punk does.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So would you say that like the mission of Yarn Punk is really to like help people fully embrace like who they are through yarn, or how would you like define your mission statement?
I would say that is I don't really have like a word for word one. I feel like it's just always still evolving, and
Yeah.
I've kind of wanted to keep it that way. I've like when I came out with the like website and everything, I've tried my best not to like have these. I'm very loose structured, and I don't like having to like have like these like checklists of things. So
Mm.
people have just kind of been like beautifying it their own way, like people hear the word and they just kind of come up with their own definition. And honestly, if that's what you need to like embrace it and not, because I've had people ask me, how do you crochet in public without being embarrassed? I'm like, embarrassed? What the? Why would you be embarrassed? It's so cool. And so
when people look at me while I'm crocheting in public, I just want to be like, yeah, I'm making something. Yeah, I'm embracing it.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be embarrassing. So if it's,
Yeah.
I think just having the title is just like a good way to like really feel like yourself and not feel like you are this like black sheep of the world. Like you don't need to feel that way just to like play with some string. I mean, it's fun.
Exactly. You don't have to feel like you don't have to be a big name. You don't have to fit a mold. You don't like there's no like you said there's no checklist in order to fit being able to start crocheting or using yarn. And I think that's one thing I love about like the maker community is everyone is different and you can all see I feel like yarn is a way that we all get to express ourselves completely because we're using our creativity to create designs, so it's a part of us.
And it seemed like when I first got into the scene, it seemed like crochet was over here and knit was over here, and using yarn punk just kind of seems like a good way to kind of blend it all together. Because like I don't care if people knit or crochet, like whatever, or like cross stitch. It's like I don't know. Everyone seems like put themselves in these categories, but there was never like a big category besides crafter. But like crafter is so broad.
That could be woodworking or metalworking or anything.
Yeah, it's been pretty it's been like a really fun ride, and I'm still like working on. I feel like I feel like I've only done half the work. Everyone else in the
Mhm.
scene has been the one
Mhm.
to be like blowing it up, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
okay, thank you everybody. Like I don't think anyone in the scene really understands like how much their contribution really does. Because I'm only one person. There's no way I could be doing what everyone else is doing, and like, oh man, it's so cool. People are embracing it. It like warms my heart.
Yeah. Oh, I know. When people like take off with an idea and then you're like, oh, thank goodness, it can actually be what I wanted it to be. I don't have to be a million people.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like such an odd feeling that people like take to your brainchild. It's like, oh, okay, good, that's rad. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm grateful that I even had the platform. But it was helpful that I already had a platform to do this with. Um, but so everything just kind of like worked out, and there's still so much I want to do with it, and it's still such a baby. I mean, I only came out with it a few months. I mean, I started saying it like a month, like in this last summer of
Yeah.
2018, and I didn't even really need to do a whole lot for it to like make an impact. So, I mean, I wanted to just flourish on its own and not be so like businessy, I guess. But it is fun. We have been doing a lot of like yarn punk features on the website, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's like it feels nice that I can do more for the world than just for myself. But
Mm.
that's what not bad does for me. So I can like focus on myself here, and then
Mm.
still yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's all just so much fun. I love it all.
I have so much fun with all of like my stuff too, and like I feel sometimes like I try not to feel bad when I'm like talking about it to people that I know that they don't get to do this, and I'm like, oh yeah, I just love getting to do this, and they're like, wait, why would you want to do that? I'm like, because it's so fun.
Mhm. I know, and I feel like my friends, I'm always asking my friends about work. I'm just like, so how's work and everything? No one really seems to want to talk about work. I'm like, ask me about work. It's so fun.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Like when people, I have some friends that they're still in college. I already graduated, but I have friends like they're like, "Oh, I'm so stressed about this test," or they'll talk about like, "Oh, I'm so stressed about this at work," and I'm like, "Yeah, I played with yarn today
I know.
and
I
blogged,
almost feel
and
kind
it
of
was
bad.
fun."
I almost
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad, but it's just like, well, that's just the road I'm on, and I'm gonna keep pursuing that.
Yeah. So how did you like kind of develop your style? Because I feel like you've got a really distinct style, kind of like what you had said. I think you said kawaii metal. So how did you like kind of like get to that point where you're like, okay, this is definitely me?
Uh, Good question. That's actually a really good question. It's funny, and I grew up. when I say grow up, like when I was actually like aware of myself. So like middle school to high school, I was like,
Yeah.
I was like kind of skater boy. I had really long hair. I actually like had bangs covering my eyebrows. My hair was like down to here.
No way.
I was like totally a skater, and then I transferred into like from late high school to college. I was like preppy hipster kind of looking. Like I was wearing like jorts, really colorful V-necks. Like, and then I don't know. Once I left college and everything, I just kind of like I've always I've always loved cute things. Like to me, that was always like the way I wanted to go. But when it came to like wearing clothing, like black and neutrals were always kind of my go-tos. And my friends at the time, well, my friends, well, a lot of them moved away. A lot of them back home to other countries and stuff. But they had a lot of influence on me just because like I really did like the kind of dark look, and I always wanted black hair, which I'm actually growing my black hair out. So, but I just wanted to try it, and I like the culmination of like looking edgy but like having a super soft side.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not an edgy person at all. Like
you don't seem like an edgy person.
No, I'm not edgy at all. Like I like making cute things. I love Pokemon. I don't know. I like soft and squishy. But I think the edginess behind it is just so ironic and funny that that's what makes it you feel like me. And then what really decided that kawaii metal was, have you ever heard of the band called Baby Metal?
No, I haven't.
It's like a heavy metal group, but they're J-pop as well.
Oh, got it.
I love the fusion of it all, and when I heard the term kawaii metal, I was like, yep, that's me. That's me. And my really good friend slash roommate at the time, he kind of has been like that as well. So he definitely had a lot of influence on me as well. And just like kind of diving into like I'm really into like the Japanese metalcore or metal scene. So that is also where I get a lot of my like influence from, and anime as well. And it's just like, okay, so I don't know. There wasn't really just a day like, okay, this is gonna be my style. I wore a lot of black, but then I like to add a splash of color that's kind of like the cute. So that was my
yeah. And I love like when I think I went one time back in your feed and like seeing all of your like selfies that like got you started with like all like I think the one that I remember probably the most is like when you wore like the Elsa, you made the Elsa wig and like had little Elsa, and I was like, I love that so much.
Oh man, I like look back at some of those selfies and I cringe. I'm just like, oh. I was like tongue out, cross-eyed. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, your style, I feel like it's definitely changed a little bit since at least in photography.
Oh yeah. Well, it was also kind of fun because like I would do like the really cute selfies, and then I would do like my professional photos of like me actually like being me. And it was like such a contrast that it just like I guess kind of always threw people for a loop. So that was kind of it was yeah. And so now it's morphed, and now that yarn punk is a thing, I've just like kind of narrowed down on my version of yarn punk. I guess so technically my style is yarn punk, but if I were to break it down more, it would be kawaii metal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, I feel like that's who you are. So I think I feel like you represent your brand really well.
What would you say your version of yarn punk is?
Oh man, okay. Let's see. I think that I feel because like in a lot of my business, like my goal is to help other people. And like I have a lot of health issues, and that's one reason why I started my business. Like I have some chronic pain syndromes, and like I've just always been kind of like the sick kid. I never look it, but I totally am. And so this was like crochet and crafts was like my way to actually feel me and not feel the pain that I was in. So it was just kind of like my outlet of like, okay, this is how I can express who I am. Like the part of me that I don't really actually believe that it could actually come true or that I could actually be, but like through creating, I'm really able to do that a lot. And so my goal is I want to help other people feel confident. So I try to make like my designs really like easy or do a lot of tutorials or help. And I don't know, kind of like boho fun, I guess.
Boho fun.
Boho fun.
That's cute.
Yeah, because like I like a lot of bright colors, which is totally like sometimes it's not really boho, but I love like the flowing designs that like anyone can wear and that make you feel awesome when you wear them. So like that's kind of I'd say boho fun would be my thing. But like the story behind all of it is like I want to help other people feel confident.
Nice. Well, I feel like having a podcast is like such a selfless thing to do too, because you're like, allowing people to express themselves to the world, but then also like inspire with other people's stories. So good on you.
Oh,
I feel
thank
this is
you.
cool.
I love learning. Like one of the things that I like has always been a part of me is I've always loved like getting to know people and like talking to them, hearing their stories. That's why I always start every episode with like, "Tell me your story," because I legitimately want to know. Because I love just like, and I think a lot of people we feel like you've got such a huge following, and so it's like that point where you feel like, oh, well, that person, they're larger than life. I can never have the confidence to talk to them, but we're all just normal people. Like,
Oh gosh, I'm so normal. Like this morning I woke up late. I was like, oh my gosh, and then because I just like was up too late playing Super Smash Bros. And I was
oh,
drinking my.
nice.
I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm so lame.
That's a great way to spend your time, though.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I know. I was just like, wow, it's really like 4 in the morning. Oh my god, I'm trying to fix my sleep schedule, but
It is hard.
yeah, it is interesting hearing people's stories. I mean, like you just said, I look larger than life, but I mean, I started from zero at one point, and everyone does. I mean, no one just like kind of
Yeah.
jumps into it. So
Yeah. And I feel like the Yarn Punk title, like, I feel like it helps give people confidence of like, hey, I could be something, or like I am something. Like I don't have to have a huge following in order to be creative or be at this point or anything.
yeah, I was doing accepting people to my blog, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so surprised I got accepted." I'm like, honestly, if you call yourself a yarn punk, I'm just gonna accept you because like I don't know, because you got to start somewhere. I mean, people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is my first blog post." I'm just like, it's nice to be an outlet that allows. I mean, because like it's the hardest thing is always just starting,
So true.
and and if I can like offer that to people, then I feel like I have done my job. So.
Exactly. Exactly. I have used what I have to help others, and that's
Mhm.
great.
And it's not like I'm blowing them up or anything, but it is nice to like be able to help, just like help in any type of way. Because I still remember everyone who was supportive at the very beginning, because there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like a lot of dismissiveness, and I was like, oh come on, like can someone just tell me that they believe in me? And I definitely remember the people who like did, and unfortunately I do still remember the people who like didn't. But
Mm.
I'm past the anger phase, and I've just like accepted it. Because honestly, now that I look back, I see people like early 20s that are like trying to pursue something, and my first instinct is like, oh, good luck. But then I need to remind myself like, no, you know what? I was there. I believe in you. If you want to pursue that, then you do that.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
like you get to work with Lion Brand all the time, which is totally one of my dreams. Like that's one of my goals is if I can have at least one kit with them, then I will have succeeded in everything.
Nice. They're such an awesome company. I adore them to no end. They have been just nothing but like delightful, generous, and just gracious. Like,
Yeah.
I love them.
How would you like? So I feel like a lot. I feel like Lion Brand is like the company that a lot of people want to work with, at least in like my circle. How did you like even get started working with them? Did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you? Like, how did it get started?
So my story is a little different from I feel like a lot. Mine's kind of I was in the same boat. I was like, oh, Lion Brand or any of these big yarn companies would be just like
Yes,
such a dream to just
so
like,
true.
just to like get the like credentials under you and just like to work with a
Yeah.
company. And there's just so many like benefits to, you know, to like working with a company like that. And my friend Jessica Carey from the Hook Nook was just like, I kept complaining about how I wanted that, and I just like wasn't making any moves to do. I was just kind of like, I thought you had to like wait for these like big things to like approach you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just decided, she just convinced me that I just need to send an email. So I sent an email on Friday to just like, hey, like like work with me, please. Just like reaching out, and then
Yeah.
they actually sent me an email on Monday, like reaching out, and I had just figured they were just like responding to my email, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then it turns out like a few days later, like, oh, we just saw your other email. So like we actually had just like emailed each other like at the exact same weekend.
Oh, wow.
So it was really a cool thing. I was like, wow, okay, so I guess this is like supposed to happen. Um,
Yeah.
and then they kind of just gave me like they're like, okay, we're gonna send you some yarn. If you do really well, let's continue this relationship. If not, it's been real. I'll see you later. Not like that, but like that's
Yeah.
how it was in my head. So I was like, okay, I gotta come up with something like
So much pressure.
I was like, okay, I gotta come up with something really cool, not basic. So that's when I actually came out with my bonds, the sloth scarf. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
so
That one's awesome.
that was like my like in my opinion my career pick, because like it's an amigurumi but it acts as a wearable, and it did
Yeah.
really well, and I think they kind of saw that I was like willing to think outside the box.
Uh-huh.
And so since then we've just been working together, and it has been awesome. But for other people that are trying to work with companies, um, definitely treat your like Instagram as a resume, not so
Mhm.
much because I think we've all learned that Instagram doesn't really drive traffic or do anything. I don't know. Uh,
It's more fun than it is like it's good to get your name out there, but Pinterest is where it's at.
it is, and Instagram it definitely serves as like because if I want to like know, I feel like a lot of people if they want to know something or about someone or like figure out what they're about really quick, you just check out their Instagram. Like that's kind
Yeah,
of like the first place you start, and then when you are impressed, you kind of work your way to the other socials. Um,
exactly.
so definitely like with that in mind, keeping it as like a resume, and nothing ever happens unless you make it happen. Like for you, I wouldn't have reached out to you to be on your podcast. You had to reach out to me because like I just like don't know. There's so much going on in the world, and like it's such a busy,
Yeah.
noisy world. So like the fact that you think like you were saying like you can't like because we were before we were talking, you said you can't believe we're talking, but it's like this is all you're doing. You went out of your way to do this, and like you said, everyone's normal, and sometimes people have an opening, and like other.
Like I found like usually like pretty much everyone that I've reached out to, and like I reached out to some names that people would consider are big names, like they're all willing to come on my show, but sometimes they're just like super busy. Like I tried to get Deborah Say on here, but she's like packed because she's working with like everyone and it's awesome.
Right.
But uh just like I found like Richie like fully embracing who you are and having that confidence of like, yeah, you know what? I could reach out to them. Like it I've been so surprised with my business and with myself of like how reaching out to people, you get so much positive feedback from the maker community. Like people just genuinely want to help, and like my whole goal with my podcast is to help other people, and most people just get behind that. They're like, yeah, I'd love to share my like advice and information. So like just go for it. Like
And it never hurts to ask. I mean,
it
because
doesn't.
even if you get a no, you're back to where you were at. Like,
Exactly. And you'd be always wondering like, oh, what would have happened if I would have actually done it? Like, yeah.
yeah, and things like this, I think everyone has a little bit of narcissism. So like, when you get the opportunity to like get to talk about yourself, it's like, oh yay,
Yeah, exactly.
it's like cool. Let's embrace this human nature of ours.
Yeah. My husband always talks about how like because he was a psychology minor in college, and so he will always be like, yeah, just ask people about themselves and they'll just be able to just go on and on and on and on because they actually do, like everyone wants to talk about themselves. They don't
They
necessarily,
do.
it just happens.
Yeah, and it's just like once you get like like the time to do it, it's nice when there's like you're offering a platform for someone there. Why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, exactly. So like what are some of your like goals that you have for Yarn Punk in the
Oh,
future?
oh, geez, so many things. Well, I definitely want to before I take over the world. Kidding. Well,
Yeah.
I definitely want it to be like. Well, that's a long-term goal. Short term, I definitely want to. I'll
Long-term
be.
goal is taking over the world. Or
Well, I was
I'm
supposed to do this last year, but I kind of like didn't follow through. But I do want to like start hosting like yarn punk events across the world.
Oh, I would
So
totally come to that.
So like yeah, and then like I was supposed to have like yarn punk captains across like each like major city, and
Yeah, that would be amazing.
stuff like that.
I've been talking with a couple other makers in California because we are like, there needs to be like a West Coast maker meetup because everything's on the East Coast. There's like nothing ever here on the West Coast.
Oh, I know.
And we're like, okay, we need to make this happen because like there are so many makers on the West Coast that would totally want to meet up and stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, right, I know. So I want to do that. I want to I definitely one day want to have my own like storefront of sorts.
That would be amazing.
I think it'd be like just like it'd be like a cool like yarn punk place to hang out, like I think that would be rad. I definitely want my like long-term goal, like my after death goal is definitely be one of those things where like how people like classify each other like, oh, they're goth or they're preppy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, she's just a yarn punk or he's just a yarn punk. I want it to definitely like be in the history books of like a certain genre.
Yeah.
And it doesn't like yarn punk doesn't necessarily need to make me money. I don't necessarily care. I mean, it'd be nice if for it to like sustain and everything. And it is doing like on the combination of not bad because I am doing this full time. But that's not really that's why I'm trying to avoid the word of like it being a business. It's more of just like that's why I try to use the word genre.
Yeah, I feel like it's a movement too.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not something I'm trying to like flesh money out of. I just think it would do the world a lot of good, and I definitely want to be some type of contributor to history. I think that would be really neat to just like have that, I guess.
I feel like you are. Like I feel like you've like inspired this wave of new crocheters or just this like I definitely feel like you've inspired a new style or like people embracing this genre. Like I definitely think that you will be remembered in the
thank you.
community. Yeah.
I think it's definitely the first genre to come out of the scene. So which is surprising to me. I'm just like I'm surprised no one's thought about making their own genre yet, but I guess that is kind of like a wild dream.
We need to have more besides just like, oh, I make this or oh, I make that. Like we need crochet genres.
I think it'd be cool. One I thought I had would be cool if like yarn punk came out with like subgenres. Like for me, I would be like yarn metal, and then you just throw in like yarn with whatever like your main aesthetic. Like you would be like yarn boho or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be cool.
I'm so for that. I think that would be awesome. And then we could just all be together and just have this one giant yarn punk movement, and it'd be amazing.
Gosh. Yeah, and it's I guess one thing I didn't even mention, I forgot the big thing about yarn punk is also the music influence, just because I love music so much. And that was actually, I guess back to your first question, I just wanted to like state this just as like a teaching moment. Because I used to just be so insecure about everything I was doing, so I'd always get opinions and everything. And before yarn punk actually started, it actually started off with a Facebook group. And I just had this idea when I was like, oh, like how can I talk about music? Because I was doing a lot of like the headbanging videos on my Instagram stories. It's like, how do I talk about music with these people? So I was like, oh, why don't I just make? Because it seems like everyone has like a Facebook group that's dedicated to yarn. But I was like, okay, let's talk about yarn and music. And I actually asked someone I was kind of involved with at the time if that was a good idea, and she straight up told me that wasn't a good idea. And I was like, oh, and honestly, I was just like kind of mad, so I just did it anyways. And yarn punk honestly wouldn't have like been created if I hadn't done that. So like, I think for anyone listening, if you have an idea, I think you should just like go for it. I mean, because like really, there's no harm in just trying something. And like
and like I listened to the podcast My Favorite Murder, and like those two, when they started, those two women, they were like, oh yeah, we just want to. We're terrified of murder and but we like to talk about it. We're fascinated by it. And so like, let's just talk about it. And they are so big in like the podcasting world. It's insane. And so many people, they started out with one Facebook group and now they've got a bunch of sub Facebook groups, all because they decided hey, let's just try this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I mean, I feel like perfectionism is such a downfall in today's
Mm-hmm.
like society and
So
economy,
true.
because like I feel like I almost put off yarn punk for a bit
Mm-hmm.
just because I wanted it to come out perfect, just like guns blazing, just like
Yeah.
yes, like out the floodgate, everything has to be happening. But really,
Mm-hmm.
you can just do one step at a time. Like
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
Not Bad happened, and that's how I kind of realized for yarn punk's okay, just one thing at a time. Let's just like
Mm-hmm.
just get it out there.
Yeah, and like I've been having to remind myself a lot of like giving yourself grace when you're doing these things. Like, don't put all this pressure on yourself to like immediately have 50,000 followers or immediately have 10,000 followers. Like, we all have different journeys that take us to that point or take us down this road that we're going. And like, if it's a little bit slower than someone else's, that's totally okay.
Yep,
Like,
yeah. I saw actually a pretty like wholesome meme. It was like when you put popcorn into a microwave, it's the same temperature, same environment, but everyone's popping at different times. But
that's
you
so
you eventually all pop. So
I love that so much. That's awesome.
I know, I was like, "Oh, that's actually like really cute." I think that's like
Yeah, that's a really great analogy. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, like you talking about like you starting a group about yarn and music. I've been wanting to like start something with like yarn and TV and movies because like I'm obsessed with TV and movies and like I know a lot of other people crochet and watch TV and movies, so I'm like I should just go for it and then just have that. So
a lot of people are using the term knitflix.
yeah,
I think Dave Berger has kind of like coined that almost,
yeah,
right?
I have a shirt that is a Stitch Flicks one.
Oh, nice.
So it's everything. So it's not just so I have like I don't have it close by me, but um it's has like a TV where on the screen it's a bunch of stitches and then the antenna it's like an old fashioned TV and then
Oh.
the antenna is like you can either get like the shirt or bag with like knitting needles or a crochet hook or a knitting needle and a crochet hook. So
Whoa, that's cool.
yeah, because like everyone like I was like, oh, I don't really knit a lot, so Netflix doesn't necessarily apply to me, but I
Ah, I see.
love movies and yarn, so let's combine that.
When I meet people, I like talk about how much TV I watch. I probably sound so pathetic, but like, I'm just like, well, I'm being productive. Like, I'm crocheting.
I mean, like, okay, I started watching The Walking Dead. Oh man, is it only? I think it's only been a week and a half, and I'm already on season 7. But it's
That'll happen in the life of a yarn punk. It's just like,
yeah.
what? Oh man. So that's where yarn punk works perfectly. I didn't know even what word to use there, but
Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah, I think that's definitely a yarn punk thing. When people are like, "Oh yeah, I just had to do all this," and I'm like, "Yeah, I just watched like 10 episodes of a TV show today and crocheted." Yeah,
gosh, I know.
I,
Those memes are funny about like people that crochet or knit. Like you know what everyone sounds like, but you don't know what the characters look like.
oh
Seven
yeah.
seasons in. It's like true, true.
There's also been one surfacing recently of where it's like when Netflix asks you if you're still watching, and it was like someone yelling at the TV like, "Of course I'm not watching. I'm crocheting. Why are you stopping?"
Yeah, for real. I feel like that's happened to me where I just like I'm so because like when I'm watching things, I'm like listening, but I'm also kind of in my own head when it's like
Yeah, yeah,
meditative. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
sometimes for me when an album stops, I like forget it's even like stopped, and I'm still like singing it to myself. It's like,
And you still
oh
have
wait,
the headphones in your ears, and then
yeah,
you realize, oh wait, there's nothing coming in them.
yeah. It's all just like it's just like such a fun. I'm just like I'm just so glad someone invented crocheting and knitting. I don't even know who did it, but
I
someone did it, and I'm really glad they did.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think I looked up the history of it a while ago, but like, cause it started out just people making lace. Like that was really, like that's how kind of crocheting started was people wanting to make lace, and then knitting was for clothing, and now it's like evolved into something so different. Like all the amigurumi and stuff, I feel like that's completely changed so much of it.
Oh
So
yeah, that's like becoming kind of big.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I was so lucky that I was making Pokemon, and then Pokemon Go came out, and I was like, well, this was really nice timing for me. Oh my gosh.
I know, and I feel like there's a resurgence of like Pokemon stuff. So like all of
Oh
your
god, yeah.
patterns and things are perfect for all of that.
Yeah, Pokemon's like the Pokemania just never dies.
It doesn't, especially now they're coming out with the Detective Pikachu movie.
Oh,
So
I cannot wait. It's gonna be so cool. I know when I was a kid, it was like embarrassing to say I played Pokemon, but now it's like
I have
that is like
I have a friend, he knows every single Pokemon, and so he will, like, if you just throw out, like, what's your favorite Pokemon from this, like, year, he'll be able to tell you, oh, this Pokemon came out in that year, and this one's my favorite. So you just say Pokemon, and he'll just start going and going.
I don't blame him. I feel like I can like name off every single competitive stat and ability and all the move sets for every single Pokemon because I've been so in the competitive scene that oh
Uh-huh.
gosh, it's amazing. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm such a big I like I don't necessarily talk about it on my Instagram, but I'm definitely a huge nerd. Like not necessarily Pokemon, but like most fandoms I'm a part of. So, and I feel like that could even be a subgenre of yarn punk too. Is like yarn
Any
nerd or something.
anything can. I don't care what people do with Yarn Punk. I just kind of like threw it out to the public to just kind of do whatever they want with it. As long as people are giving me credit for like being the my brainchild, I don't care what you do with it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think totally do the subcategories
oh
that start a bunch of hashtags that would totally take off.
gosh, I'm surprised how well the Yarn Punk hashtag is doing. I'm just like, okay, this is. I don't know how people learn about it. I've like mentioned it a few times,
Uh-huh.
and I'm just like, okay, this is cool.
Well,
So
because like Coco Crochet Lee and Teal Yarn Crafts, they use that in their captions almost every time they post.
I know.
So
I'm like, and they're like I don't know. They're like really big in their own sense. They're very
Mhm,
influential people, and so
mhm,
I'm just like,
mhm.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're almost out of time for this episode, but I just wanted to get like, what are your last like thoughts that you would use to like encourage someone who is kind of feeling like they don't know how they belong in the yarn world, or how you would encourage someone to like embrace their yarn punk side?
I would say I don't think you should be looking for the feeling to feel belonging. If you are in love with yarn as the rest of us, there is an entire just horde of people who already accept you for who you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should be out here looking for recognition. You should be proud of yourself for even like taking on something that actually like
Hmm.
expresses your soul. I think you're already ahead of the game. There's so
Yeah.
many unfortunately there's so many people out there who are still like looking for their thing and if you know it's yarn then you're ahead of the game and you should feel already pretty proud. And Yarn Punk is definitely a community for you. I mean, like we are accepting of everybody, like no matter your race, gender, sex, whatever have you, age. I don't care. I do not care in the slightest. um, so
Come on, come on.
yeah, seriously, it's we're all share a like-minded thing, and that's all that really matters. We all bleed thread, so it's fine.
So true.
So
Seriously, like if yeah, they like my whole will would just be here's all this yarn.
I know. I don't know how you could like. It just like there's a lot of like. Yeah, I don't know how you could discriminate against anybody. I mean, we all have like the same kind of veins. Like,
Hmm.
our yarn, our veins are made of yarn, so it's just like
Yeah.
I
And
don't
like
know.
we all like I feel too like we all struggle like I feel like there's this huge thing of people who do crochet or knitting or crafts like they struggle with mental illness and just like
Oh yeah,
depression, anxiety, and like I feel like too like if you have that, like don't let that stop you from doing something because like I totally struggle with it and
that that all my mental health issues is the exact reason why I'm here today. I just
yeah,
mental
yeah,
health is a whole nother thing, but honestly, the way I see it, it's kind of like a little superpower in a sense. I mean, like yeah, it's your partner in crime for sure, and you kind of have to just like
yeah.
roll with it. I mean, you have another side of you that you should just like not so much like try to stomp down and say it's bad, but accept what it is and just use it to your advantage, because you do see the world in a whole different light that people aren't seeing either. So
yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much, Vincent, for coming on the show. This was so much fun getting to
this was
talk
fun.
with you. I loved it. I thought it was so great.
Well, thank you so much, Claire.
Oh yeah, yeah, and we should totally plan a West Coast maker meetup, I think, or yarn punk maker meetup. I'm in
down
California, but I would totally come up.
Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like, yeah. Well, I'm just so glad you're part of the scene, and now that we're like officially friends now, we can chit chat.
Oh yeah, I'm stoked. I'm like, yes, I've got Vincent as one of my friends.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to listen to it when it comes out.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye, Claire.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like it below if you enjoyed watching it, and hit the subscribe button if you never want to miss out a video from me. And also check out my other videos and tutorials on my channel. See you next time.